Oh my, Guilbeault just won't let it go. More on that coming up in just a minute. You're not going to want to miss what he said now. Hey folks, welcome back to Unfiltered. My name is Dan. You know, we launched this channel just 15 days ago, May the 7th, and as of this morning, we've hit over 95,000 views thanks to you. And that tells me that our voices are just getting louder. So here's today's itch. Why is Quebec suddenly open to pipelines? And why now, just as voices for separation in the West are turning into a roar? Stick with me because by the end of this video, we're going to connect 6 headlines that paint one big picture. And hey, if you haven't yet, please subscribe and help us to push to 2,000 subscribers by this weekend. All right, let's kick it off with the Crown Corporation that's become a national punchline, and that's Canada Post. They've lost $748 million last year, got a $1 billion federal loan this January, and now the union wants to strike? Because of course they do.
CUPW, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, is one of the most militant unions in the entire country. They oppose virtually everything and really don't worry whatsoever about whether Canada Post is solvent or not. It is losing tons and tons of money, and yet they are asking for massive wage hikes for postal workers. I don't know what planet they're operating on, but it's not planet Earth.
CUPW, one of the most aggressive unions when it comes to negotiations, regardless of the cost? Phew, aggressive is right. If Canada Post were a private company, it would have gone bankrupt a decade ago. But since it's our tax dollars backing them up, it just keeps burning cash like it's junk mail. Remember a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Terrebonne election? The Liberals winning by one vote. Well, now the Bloc Québécois wants the courts to overturn the results. And in Newfoundland, it's a 12-vote spread, and the recount is still dragging on. You know, you start wondering if our Canadian elections are being held together with dollar store tape and hope. Did you hear about this? CTV News dropping a bomb this week. Mark Carney is now more trusted than Justin Trudeau ever was. 52% of Canadians have more trust in Prime Minister Mark Carney now than they did in former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at just 26% after he was first elected and during his last days in office. This is what a new poll suggests. From CTV News, the Proof Strategies Can Trust Index survey conducted annually by the Loggett Group polled 1,250 Canadians between May 5th and 14th. It was suggested that 52% of Canadians said they trust Carney as of May 2025, while just 26% said they trusted Trudeau back in January. A 2016 poll from Proof Strategies, which has been tracking trust for a decade, suggests that only 46% of Canadians trusted Trudeau at the time. Trust in Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre seems to have stalled since this last year's election. The survey suggests with 38% of Canadians saying they trust him in May, down slightly from 40% in January. Here's the kicker, the story says. The polling industry's professional body, the Canadian Research Insights Council, says online surveys cannot be assigned a margin of error because they do not randomly sample the population. You want this story? Check the description. All right. Now, remember, Carney isn't some folksy outsider. He was governor of the Bank of Canada and England, then vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management. When a global banker from Brookfield is more trusted for prime minister, okay. Don't forget to subscribe if you're nodding your head right now with me. You are not alone. Before we get into the social media gold, let's rewind the tape for just a second.
So on pipelines, people should remember that we bought a pipeline, Trans Mountain, and that is only used right now about 40% capacity. So I think before we start talking about building an entire new pipeline, maybe we should maximize the use of existing infrastructure. And the Canadian Energy Regulator, as well as the International Energy Agency, are telling us that probably by 2028, 2029, demand for oil will peak globally, and it will also peak in Canada. So as far as I know, there are no investors right now. There are no companies that are saying that they want to build an east-west pipeline. And as you know, these things are built by companies, not governments.
About a week ago, right after the first caucus meeting, Guilbeault stood in front of reporters and doubled down again. Oil is on the decline. So I'm scrolling through Facebook last night and boom, there it was on the Premier of Alberta's Facebook page. And Guilbeault, you just won't let it go. Look, Guilbeault is now the culture minister, but he's still clinging to the same tired old peak oil talking points. Why? Even think tanks are saying demand for oil will hold steady. But hey, ideology over evidence, right? Let's zoom in on Quebec. Premier François Legault is suddenly signaling openness to pipelines. Premier Smith reacted this weekend on her weekend talk show, Your Province, Your Premier, on 770 CHQR in Calgary and 880 CHED in Edmonton. This is what she had to say.
Thank you. Well, I've been very annoying for Premier Legault because I told him every time I see him, I was going to lobby him on developing their own substantial natural gas resources. And every time I saw him, he said there's no social acceptability for it until recently. So you know what? You can wear people down just by making the case. And I think
the Premier of Alberta goes on to talk about the benefits of natural gas.
Use natural gas, it means you're not using other high-emitting fuels like coal and wood and in some cases even dung. And the high demand in Europe, when you think of the proximity for Quebec, if they develop their resources, worked with Nova Scotia, and we're able to export to Europe, that helps our allies there. So I think the world has changed in its understanding since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That's maybe part of it.
But here's where it gets interesting, because while Smith is calling it a breakthrough, the window might be closing just as fast. Prime Minister Mark Carney's own words highlighted this: the window for political consensus around pipeline development is narrow, and Alberta has a short runway to act. Translation: if Alberta doesn't move soon, the federal tides could shift again and the door slams shut. What's changed? Could it be the economic math is finally catching up? Or maybe they just hear Alberta getting serious about sovereignty and louder than ever. Not in our own backyard becomes, let's have a conversation. Funny how that works when your budget could start bleeding if certain things happened. All right, let's bring it all home. Year over year, Canada has spent billions of dollars on foreign oil. Billions sent elsewhere, while Alberta's oil waits. Even today, 64% of Eastern Canada's refinery input comes from outside our borders, mostly the United States. Meanwhile, Alberta sits on the third largest oil reserve on the planet. So here's what we covered today. A Crown Corporation on strike, potentially, while burning billions, and federal elections being held together with bubblegum, and provinces finally doing the pipeline math. Unfiltered isn't just holding receipts anymore, we're holding the truth. Subscribe if you believe it's time to speak up, and let's hit 2,000 subscribers by this weekend. And oh, by the way, if you're in Red Deer this Saturday, I'll be at the Alberta Republicans Independence Town Hall. This is happening at the Red Deer Resort and Conference Center. It starts at 2 o'clock, doors opening at 1:15. Want to be interviewed? Just email me at grassrootsalberta@gmail.com. This is Unfiltered, and we're just getting started.